Lessons from Santiago's journey in The Alchemist. The courage to pursue your dreams. In our youth, we often ponder our true purpose, questioning our passions and life goals. By the age of 25, our inquiries evolve, leading us to wonder if we have fully committed ourselves to pursuing those dreams, or if we are merely wandering astray on a path of our own choosing. Upon reaching 30, the self-reflection resurfaces, filled with doubts and concerns about missed opportunities or the time left to achieve our aspirations. In those moments of life's crossroads, if your heart still hasn't found its direction, consider pausing to deeply reflect on the following 5 stories, which might just unlock the door to your unique answer. The Alchemist narrates the tale of Santiago, a young shepherd who, in pursuit of his dream, boldly sold his flock, his entire livelihood, to embark on a challenging quest across the desert in search of a treasure. This simple yet profound parable has touched the hearts of millions and mirrors the spiritual journey of its author, Paulo Coelho. At 17, Coelho rebelled and was placed in a psychiatric hospital by his parents. Later, he was imprisoned for his opposition to a dictatorship regime. By 38, Coelho seemed to have achieved little until he embarked on a nearly 600 kilometers pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, Spain, a journey that spanned over 3 months and gradually calmed his restless spirit. This pilgrimage inspired him to write about Santiago's treasure hunt, transforming Coelho into a celebrated Latin American author, comparable only to Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the author of the timeless 100 Years of Solitude. The Alchemist teaches us that a life without purpose is merely a chaotic maze, with everyone inside searching for an exit. Focusing too much on gains and losses can blind us to our true dreams. Santiago, born into a modest family in Spain, was expected by his parents, who lived off a small piece of land, to become a priest and the family's pride. But Santiago dreamt of exploring the world. Despite his father's strong objections, Santiago's determination prevailed, leading to a compromise. His father gave him 3 gold coins to buy sheep and live the life he desired. These coins symbolized not only a compromise but also his father's deep, resonant support, reflecting his own youthful desires to travel. In the book, every character harbors their own dreams, from Santiago's father, who wished to travel, to a street vendor dreaming of Africa, and even robbers near the pyramids pursuing treasures like Santiago. Yet, due to various reasons and the pressures of reality, many abandon their dreams, leaving behind a trail of regrets. The reason often lies in the balance between gain and loss, with this calculation obscuring their initial desires. If we lack the courage and conviction for what we truly want, we'll never break free from the comfort zone. Santiago shattered this illusion, leaving his homeland to live as a shepherd, embracing the life he yearned for. Over 2 years, Santiago learned much about shepherding, saw beautiful landscapes, and met many people, thinking he would lead a peaceful life. Yet, a recurring dream about a child leading him to a treasure in Egypt stirred his soul. This dream, interpreted by a wise old man as his destiny, posed a dilemma. Pursuing the treasure meant leaving his current life behind. Like many, Santiago almost lost himself in weighing the pros and cons. But the King of Salem's words, that our fate is what we truly desire, reignited Santiago's passion. Isn't his lifelong dream to see the world? Santiago followed his heart once again, setting off to fulfill his own dream. The greatest deception in life is surrendering to reality and declaring, "It's too late, this is my fate." But in truth, destiny shouldn't lead to regret. It should represent what we earnestly wish to do. People often wonder whether they'll regret the things they've dreamt of doing or the actions they've taken. Research suggests that for most actions, even if they fail, the regret is short-lived, eventually rationalized away. Yet unfulfilled desires linger, breeding lifelong regret as we can't rationalize them or convince ourselves otherwise. A saying goes, dreams remain distant if we never take the first step. They can't endure waiting or discouragement. Like steel forged in fire, dreams need timely shaping at high temperatures before they cool and harden, becoming difficult to mold. When your long-held dream resurfaces, act immediately while your zeal is alive. Even if the dream remains out of reach, the daily effort will reveal a better version of yourself, urging you to persevere on your dream's path. Success isn't always smooth sailing. Santiago, upon arriving in Africa, faced significant setbacks, including a language barrier and being robbed by a supposed friend, leaving him penniless and alone in a foreign land. Remembering the King of Salem's words that the universe conspires to help those committed to their dreams gave Santiago newfound confidence and courage. The next day, he set out to find opportunities, believing life sometimes knocks us down only to offer hope and belief. Santiago's observation skills and willingness to help led him to a crystal shop struggling to attract customers. By volunteering to clean the crystal without pay, just for food, he eventually earned a job and suggested ways to improve the business. However, reaching his dream of Egypt meant crossing thousands of kilometers of desert, a goal seemingly unattainable with just a few days' earnings. In pursuit of dreams, we may feel most despair when, despite our hardest efforts, our goals seem far off. Santiago experienced this heartache but chose to stay at the crystal shop, focusing on earning money. Sometimes, great ideas can elevate a business, and after a year, Santiago not only doubled his money but also learned about business and Arabic. For those truly committed to their dreams, immediate hurdles are neither unfair nor torturous, but seen as challenges to strengthen us and aid our growth. At this point, Santiago had a choice: live a prosperous life as a businessman or continue pursuing his dream. The crystal shop owner tried to persuade him to stay, but Santiago was reminded of the king's words and chose to follow his heart. He never forgot his mission to find the treasure in Egypt, continuing his journey across thousands of kilometers to a small oasis where he met Fatima. The moment Santiago looked into her eyes, he was overwhelmed by love at first sight. After a deep, profound love developed, Santiago considered abandoning his dream to stay with her forever. But the dream of the alchemist awakened Santiago, who realized abandoning his dream would lead to lifelong regret, burdening both him and his beloved. Seeing his heart's truth, Santiago resolved to pursue his dream and head to Egypt. Paulo Coelho once said, "True living requires the ability to let go, for only through releasing can one attain." Those who achieve greatness know how to sacrifice immediate pleasures for their heart's true dreams. Real motivation always stems from an inner fervor. Santiago faced numerous challenges in his quest for the Egyptian treasure, including being captured by military soldiers and losing all his money. Forced into an impossible situation, he had to turn himself into the wind within 3 days or face death. Despite the daunting challenge, Santiago maintained his spirit, communicating with the sun and wind, feeling the world's soul, and striving to understand the universe's language. With inspiration and encouragement from the alchemist, he dared to do the impossible and transformed into the wind. But upon reaching the pyramids, not only did he not find the treasure, but he was also robbed and beaten. Yet, a thief's words revealed the treasure's true location back in his homeland. When you truly harbor a dream, one that persistently resides in your heart, no hardship or struggle can deter you. As Nietzsche said, a person who knows their life's purpose can endure any existence. The author also confessed that the ability to realize dreams makes life more intriguing. Each of us possesses infinite potential, and the pursuit of dreams is filled with countless joys. While dreams may not always come true, the pursuit brings genuine happiness and growth, making us better versions of ourselves. Like Santiago, who traveled across seas and deserts, coming full circle to find the treasure where he started, the journey might seem wasteful, but the experiences enrich our lives. Even if Santiago hadn't found the treasure, his life was immensely fascinating, with every rise and fall contributing to his growth. Life isn't about the days we've lived, but about those worth remembering. Dear friends, remember, when you have a dream, you must pursue it. Never abandon the dreams in your heart, no matter how harsh reality may seem. Keep them in the warmest part of your heart. No one can stop you from living the life you desire, except yourself. Believe that all motivation comes from an inner fervor. Trust that there's no tomorrow you can't reach. For the rest of our lives, let's face our true desires, bravely pursue our dreams, take responsibility for our lives, and make them shine. 2. Finding meaning in the midst of adversity. Viktor Frankl's legacy and lessons for living. What is the purpose of our existence? How should we live our lives? In a recent article I read in Politika magazine, the author introduced the teachings of Viktor Frankl, 1905 to 1997, a world-renowned Austrian psychiatrist and a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Viktor Frankl believed that humans need a sense of purpose in life. Life can inflict pain when people feel a void in their existence. Frankl's own extraordinary life stands as the best proof of this, ensuring the reliability of his writings, which have become bestsellers worldwide, from the United States to Japan, from the West to the East. Like Sigmund Freud, Dr. Frankl was of Jewish descent. After graduating from university, he opened a free mental health clinic for young people, working with luminaries like Freud and Alfred Adler. In 1938, when the Nazis came to power in Austria, Frankl could have fled. He had a visa to the USA but chose not to leave his elderly parents behind. He was allowed to practice as a psychiatrist until 1942, but only in a hospital for Jewish patients in Vienna. Knowing that Hitler's forces would kill mental patients, he issued fake diagnoses to save his patients. In 1942, Frankl, his parents, wife, and brother were deported to the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland and later to Dachau in Germany. The manuscript he had begun writing on a doctor's stance on the suffering of existence was confiscated. The hope of reuniting with his family and rewriting the book helped him survive. Liberated by Americans from Dachau, he returned to Vienna to find that his parents, brother, and pregnant wife had all died in the camps. He worked in a psychiatric hospital, recreated his lost manuscript, and wrote his next book, A Psychologist in the Concentration Camp, which brought his theories to the world. 2 years after the war, he remarried. Writing, work, and love, he found the meaning of life in these after the tragedies of war. Frankl founded the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy, known as logotherapy, alongside Freud's psychoanalysis and Adler's individual psychology. Logos means word, doctrine, meaning. Freud suggested humans are driven by pleasure, Adler by power to overcome feelings of inferiority. But Frankl posited that the primary human drive is the search for life's meaning. He aimed to help those in pain, suffering from existential void. He wanted psychotherapy to embrace a more humane approach. As a doctor and philosopher, Frankl fought against what he called nihilism, the reduction of human existence to mere psychological, physical, or social factors. He argued that humans are more than that. We are also spiritual beings, not mere products of physiology, psychology, or society. Thus, humans are not puppets controlled by internal or external forces. We have the capacity to seek meaning in life and aspire towards values. Frankl's experiences, and those he met under extreme conditions, offered a unique perspective on humanity, distinct from Freud or Adler. From Frankl's descriptions of spiritual experiences in concentration camps, we learn lessons on overcoming the cruelty of totalitarian regimes. What should we do with the black holes of existence? What truly matters in life? What helps us find mental and spiritual strength for ourselves and others? How to live and for what purpose? Frankl's lessons are not easy in today's culture of mass consumption and instant gratification. However, he did not preach morality. He aimed to assist those experiencing spiritual deadlocks. He warned against two extremes: obsessing over the past and insisting life must unfold in a particular way. He advocated a life oriented towards values, towards the future, because he saw in the camps that those with something to believe in, whether religious, intellectual, political, or social activists, or those who strove to help others, had better survival chances. They believed they had a future, lived for someone or something, and despite being deprived of all normal human conditions, they always tried to act with dignity, not allowing their sense of freedom and dignity to be destroyed. One cannot produce, invent, or gift the meaning of life. It must be found because meaning exists outside us, in values that uplift the human spirit, values that the concentration camp prisoners sought to serve. Modern psychology and culture often minimize human freedom, unveiling various forms of dependency. Frankl swam against the current, showing that humans can always choose between worthy and unworthy actions, thereby exercising their freedom. Despite limitations, humans remain free, and it's crucial that they benefit from this freedom. Beyond love, work, and creativity, Frankl also valued suffering, when it does not destroy but enriches the human spirit. This happens when people realize they cannot achieve everything, and that this limitation can serve a greater good. Modern culture teaches the opposite, that we have the right, even the duty, to set conditions and demands in life. But it does not teach us what to do when life fails to meet those demands. The value of suffering has no place in the first aid kit of pop culture. According to Frankl, life's meaning is not a commodity to be bought, ordered, or directly pursued. Meaning results from fulfilling values beyond individual goals and needs. The actions we perform, the works we create, the love we experience, and the suffering we endure with courage and dignity all contribute to human value beyond personal interests and human limitations. According to Frankl's school of thought, a strong sense of life's meaning is a component of mental health. Happiness is a byproduct of feeling that our lives have meaning. Thus, those who seek and create values find happiness more readily. The sign of existential emptiness is boredom, when people don't know what to do with their free time and kill time as if it were an enemy, plunging into any activity or amusement. It seems simple, but often it's hard to break free from the world of conformism. According to Dr. Opochinska of Jagiellonian University, Frankl is one of the greatest masters of the 20th century in defining limits and distances. Not everything is possible, necessary, or allowed. Instead of asking why one is unhappy, Frankl said, ask what life expects from you and get to work. 3. From lost to found, seeking solitude. I've disengaged from the hustle and bustle of life. No phone, no TV, no internet, no path back. My new abode, A splendid house with ancient-style curved domes, sparkling glass doors, glossy tiled floors, and a breezy porch where I sit sipping tea every morning, gazing at the mountains and river. In my baggage, aside from some old clothes, someone kindly gave me a pack of rice balls seasoned with salt along with a tea set. I ate all the rice during the journey. The tea set always close by, fearing its breakage. Without it, I'd feel utterly empty. When everyone bid farewell and returned, I was left fidgeting. I could still catch up, or else I might rot away from sorrow. The old neighbor, a few steps away, lived in a dilapidated house, limping with a cane, often visited very early. The first morning, he brought over a bucket of tea. I arranged the tea set, colored earth brown. He wasn't surprised, mentioned he had a similar set before, but the clay softened after a few years. The tea still had a moldy smell after brewing twice. Around mid-morning, opposite the sun, a bald figure appeared, standing statue-like. The limping man said, "The monk came for tranquility. He wakes up before the sun every day to meditate." I started paying attention, frequently observing the monk through the crack of the door. His house was tower-shaped with closed shutters at the back and always an open front door. According to the limping man, he devoted his life to meditation, never went anywhere, didn't cook, and ate only once a week. Astonishing. I thought of seeking his teachings. One day, as he finished meditating and stepped out, I followed him inside. No beds, just a cool, moist floor. Looking around, I tried to imagine where he slept. Here, there, in that corner, or was there a hidden cellar somewhere? The monk gestured for me to sit, then folded his legs and covered them with his robe. "You must be sad, having just arrived." He called me sir, even though he was decades older. What should I call him in return? Pondering, I eventually thought of master, encompassing both a teacher and a monk. Yes, somewhat. Honestly, I couldn't imagine this place being so serene. "Master, when you're free, please come over for tea." The monk smiled. "I used to be addicted to tea. When leaving, they also gave me tea, but I decided to practice moderation. Drinking tea would hurt. Someday I'll come over. Sitting by to listen to stories is also enjoyable." The monk served a cup of clear water. I gently pushed the window open. Light flooded in, revealing my brand new house across, basked in sunlight. I took a sip. No taste. Sacred water. The monk's tower-like house had mossy walls and long cracks. Its owner either moved away or had passed to another world. "There are many abandoned houses around here, aren't there, master?" "They all have owners. You just haven't seen them." "Is that so?" I had heard about the monk's prowess. Some nights, flames appeared on top of his tower-like house. The limping man panicked, shouting fire, unaware it was a manifestation of the monk's intense meditation practice. For some reason, I suddenly asked, "Master, are you about to leave the mountains?" The monk looked away, silent. I intended to ask further, "What brings you here?" and imagined him asking me the same, and saying, "Everyone comes here with a similar purpose." Then I thought of the limping man. Perhaps he had the same purpose as me and the monk. More than anyone, the monk understood my question about leaving the mountains. Hence he diverted the topic to a Zen story. In the past, when Hunang realized enlightenment, he was given the robe and bowl by Master Huang Nan. Being young, he was advised to hide. He blended in with hunters for 16 years. Once passing a temple, he saw people arguing whether the flag or the wind moved, neither side yielding. He simply stated, "It's your minds that are moving." Hearing this, the temple master invited him to stay. Thus began Hunang's journey to spread his teachings. Excuse my boldness, but which temple were you from before? I taught without a curriculum, mostly outside the traditional teachings, so I was suspended and assigned to the library. Years as a bookworm, touching the Mahayana scriptures, I realized all my prior learning was superfluous. Returning to teaching, I often brought up Buddhism, comparing it to societal upper classes, offering insights into the nature of the universe and human existence, which eventually led to trouble. I left the school. Perhaps my karma was too heavy. I mistakenly joined a place where both teacher and disciples were superstitious, distorting Buddha's words. Youthful impulsiveness. The monk fell into a contemplative silence, his sigh seemingly held back. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a long shadow of the monk. Our conversation stretched into midday. I returned home hungry while the monk continued his meditation. The window remained open as he left it. I remembered a Zen koan involving an intellectual and a monk. The man came seeking wisdom, was offered tea, and the monk kept pouring until the cup overflowed. The intellectual pointed it out, and the monk stopped pouring, saying, "Like this cup, your mind is full of opinions and knowledge. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Years of accumulating, the stagnant pollution of worldly matters, not like the well of wisdom which grows clearer the more it's drawn from. I wanted to empty myself out. Restless nights followed. Why lie in bed waiting for sleep? I got up, wandering around my new settlement. Indeed, there were abandoned houses, empty, or perhaps their inhabitants were temporarily away. Recalling the monk's words, "You just haven't seen them yet." Was it my vision, or were they in a different realm? I approached the monk's tower. Moonlight shone through the front door. A slender, dignified figure appeared, emanating a warm aura that made my legs tremble. The monk greeted me with folded hands. Silence ensued until I finally asked to be his disciple. He shook his head. "I cannot, but if you wish, I can teach you the Dharma." "Please, I'm grateful. Is meditation difficult?" The monk pondered before responding. "I specialize in insight meditation, but I think it might be too challenging for you. I'll offer you this advice. Practice chanting. There's a saying, chanting sutras is not as good as chanting mantras, and chanting mantras is not as effective as reciting the name of Amitabha Buddha. Considering you're an intellectual, likely to underestimate the profound practice of reciting the Buddha's name, I'll pass on to you the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum from the Vajrayana tradition. No need to understand its meaning. Just recite it whenever you hear it clearly, aligning mind and speech, and you'll experience its miraculous effects. If you're concerned about others' judgments, it's best to chant silently within your heart, without moving your lips, and no one will know you're practicing a profound dharma. Just listen to the mantra and chant it in your mind, continuously rotating it day and night, and someday you'll enjoy transcendent joy. I repeated each word, Om Mani Padme Hum. Whenever a thought arises, keep chanting 3 times, 5 times, making it solid. If it seems too difficult, switch to reciting Amitabha Buddha. This phrase is also a great bright mantra. Perhaps it suits your temperament. Focus on chanting and the rubbish in your mind will naturally transform. Once the mind quiets, wisdom will emerge. I was overjoyed, reciting non-stop, attentively listening to each word. That's the key. If you chant without listening, it means your mind is restless. Thoughts arising from the mind are like waves constantly oscillating in the universe. A mind that initiates good thoughts is a saintly mind attracting virtue. A mind that initiates harmful thoughts is an ordinary mind attracting karma. Reciting the great bright mantra is like broadcasting a super virtuous wave. Hastily thanking the master, I sat squarely in the middle of the floor, eyes closed, chanting. Oddly, the effect was the opposite. Images of people and places from the past surged forward. I followed the monk's instruction, chanting in sequences of 3, 5, striving to listen. But as I chanted, more and more distractions arose. Scenes connected. Then an entire film played through my mind. I was in a graduate class. The same professor, the same demeanor, spouting the same worn-out knowledge. After a period of climbing trees, primates descended to the ground to forage, walking on 2 legs, freeing their hands for picking. In my thesis, I included the seed of God, about how quantum physics uncovers that matter is essentially condensed thought projections from the alaya consciousness. Humans thus continue to exist even after the physical body perishes. Received painfully low marks. When I got my paper back, I protested loudly in the middle of the class. The professor glared, standing stiff as a dry tree. Then, other scenes interwove. I could still clearly hear the Om Mani Padme Hum chants, then switching to Amitabha Buddha. The sacred name blurred and drifted into the void. Then I found myself in her apartment. Men's slippers hinted more about the occupant than anything else. Older men. I was about to knock, but hesitated. It's bewildering how terrifying human thoughts can be at times. The urge to see what she was doing and with whom reminded me to stay calm. Peeking through a crack in the door, I couldn't see the whole scene, but enough to make my skin crawl. Him, a naked, flabby body aggressively engaging with her. My eyes couldn't believe what they saw. Could anyone? The tail. Still there, a long, unevolved tail of a primate on his body. I turned and ran from the primate that hadn't lost its tail after thousands of years, ran from her image that had turned repulsive in my mind. Yet, the professor had a strange intuition. He knew me. He could be oblivious, reveal all flaws, but he could never reveal a tail. Him, with a perfectly planned cover-up. Waking up was worse than a nightmare. The mantra had vanished. Never before had I imagined scenes as horrifying as the ones that had just flooded my mind. Barefoot, I ran back to the master to recount my experience. He smiled, slightly mockingly. Did you think meditation was easy? Until now, your delusions were infinite but unnoticed. Introducing the mantra was like sweeping the house, stirring up dust, like examining water under a microscope to see the countless microbes. Your delusions intensified because the mantra is still weak. When it becomes strong, your mind will clear and brighten like a mirror. The following morning, after many years, the old tea trees bore fruit. In the summer, I patiently harvested, dried, and packed the leaves for use until the next spring, when they bloomed white flowers. The limping man brought over a freshly brewed pot of tea, bragging, "This tea is exquisite. The new guy here is rich, so he uses the good stuff." Instantly, I wondered, who? Where? He pointed east, towards the monk's tower at a 60-degree angle. I strained to see, spotting a vague round shape. The tea had a unique green hue, dense and aromatic with a peculiar purity. I planned to invite the master to share it, but I decided to wait. As usual, around late morning, the master still hadn't appeared. "I want to stretch my legs at the market." The limping man looked at me as if I were a stranger, taking a long time before whispering, "Take it easy. It's too early. Who would cover their eyes? They've turned off the light." Then he propped his limping leg on the chair, as if reminding me he was once a top athlete. "Remember to sink the boat if you cross the river. Did you leave your boat at the shore when you arrived?" "I've sunk it!" I glanced at the mountain to see the wide river encircling it. "So, you think this time you have the resolve to cross the river without a boat?" I fell silent, looking towards the monk's tower. Last night, while meditating, I didn't see the master. The house of the newcomer now appeared clearer, stark white. "Ever since you arrived, you've been circling the same paths. How about we climb that mountain for a change of scenery?" I was somewhat concerned about his limping leg. Yet, Another thought struck me. Everyone who comes here brings their own secret techniques, and with techniques, one must practice in secrecy. What did I really know about this limping neighbor? Following him for days without carrying anything, enduring hunger and thirst, I had to forage for leaves and fruits. Upon descending the mountain, I felt so light I could almost fly. Reaching the porch, I was stunned. Who had left a bouquet of flowers? A premonition told me she had been here, though I never imagined a grand ship could bring her. Old images resurfaced. I needed to dissolve this sad memory, transform her image into a fleeting mist. I immediately resumed chanting. Another piece of paper, already burnt. I could still read, "I've left the boat, waiting for your return." As I chanted the sacred name, directing myself towards the slender footprints leading to the riverbank, I scanned the horizon, no sail in sight. She was gone. Mani Padme Hum. Something powerfully surged within. Yes, sorrow. I was in possession of sorrow, the remaining sorrow in the depths of my soul. Staggering on the sand, pebbles pressing into the soles of my feet, painful and sharp. Unsure of where to go, just let go. In a moment of profound silence in my heart, a message fell. She could no longer lie. No one can lie to the soul. I turned back to the riverbank. There it was, the place where incense sticks had just burned out, exactly as promised on the piece of paper now turned to ash. She had left me a boat. The paper boat, soaked and gradually sinking into the vast expanse of water, encapsulated the story. This narrative reflects a profound spiritual journey, where the protagonist seeks meaning and peace in life by distancing from the material and technological world. The act of abandoning phones, TVs, the internet, and even the path back home, coupled with moving to a new, magnificent house amidst the grandeur of nature, symbolizes the decision to seek tranquility and liberation from daily life's constraints. This journey is not merely physical but profoundly spiritual, as the protagonist engages with the surrounding individuals like the limping neighbor and the monk, and with himself through meditation and mantra chanting. Through these interactions, the story explores themes of loneliness, the quest for life's meaning, the process of self-awareness, and inner transformation. The protagonist learns and practices meditation under the monk's guidance, but also faces inner challenges and distractions as memories and imagination surge. Accepting and learning from these experiences enables him to grow spiritually, moving closer to enlightenment and peace. The story also contemplates the search for peace and liberation in a complex and tumultuous world. It highlights the importance of turning inward, seeking silence and truth within oneself, thereby opening a new path to enlightenment and a deeper understanding of life and the universe. Each character, from the limping neighbor to the monk, carries lessons and meanings, reflecting different aspects of the spiritual journey, from understanding and insight to acceptance and liberation. Ultimately, this journey is not about escaping the external world, but about discovering and accepting oneself, leading to true peace and happiness. The protagonist encounters, from initially seeking solitude to engaging in deep spiritual practices and facing his inner demons, illustrate a transformational path. The final scenes, involving the paper boat and the realization about the impossibility of deceiving the soul, signify the culmination of this quest. It represents a moment of clarity and acceptance, where the protagonist finds solace, not in the physical world, but in the profound realization of life's transient nature and the eternal flow of existence. This narrative is a meditation on the meaning of seeking peace and enlightenment amid life's chaos. It underscores the significance of self-discovery, the pursuit of inner quietude, and authenticity in the soul, thereby unveiling a pathway to true awakening and understanding of the cosmos and human existence. 4. Is the water boiling yet? He arrived at this place on a windy afternoon. The gentle slope leading up to the mountaintop wound like a snake on the sheer cliff face. The canopy of green trees obscured the setting sun, dragging the last rays of light behind a thicket. A few trees leaned perilously in the fierce wind. The purple flowers hid silently as if waiting for protection. The howling wind through the pine forest sounded sorrowful, like the cries of 1,000 beings in a fiery purgatory. The shadow of a predator rustled in the underbrush, its eyes gleaming like jewels in the dark foliage. The green of the leaves intertwined, forming a vast net that enveloped the forest under the twilight. The narrow path was bare, rustling with dry leaves every time the wind blew strongly. The mountain's silhouette stood like a defiant giant challenging the endless heavens, proudly bearing the marks of stonecutters hoping to find large boulders for sculpture. Some marks were deep wounds in the mountain's heart, while others were shallow, leaving a trace of enduring grudge and resentment. Below the mountain, the village lay shrouded in a few wisps of mystical smoke, with the occasional bark of a dog. He hastened his steps. He needed to reach the mountain's summit before nightfall engulfed everything. He had heard tales of ferocious beasts lurking, waiting to pounce on travelers. The villagers near the mountain believed that demons resided at the peak, ready to devour anyone daring to explore the mysterious depths. They told him that sometimes travelers would ascend the mountain, never to be seen descending. The villagers were certain that some hunters had found their bones, crumbled under trees as big as 10 men could embrace. They firmly told him he would not return. He would not pass their village again. He would become prey for the beasts. At the inn, he quietly listened to the innkeeper's stories. The man poured him a cup of tea and asked, "Do you really plan to climb to the summit?" He nodded to the innkeeper, though his eyes wandered to the towering mountain, wishing to touch the swirling clouds high above. The remote, wild peak, a destination for the wanderer who had traveled many miles to find this place. Surely, the mountain's height was no accident. He was determined to reach the summit at any cost, regardless of the challenges. His hair was speckled with silver. He began to see life as ephemeral. A wanderer, unconcerned with worldly matters, seeking some profound secret that might free him from the cycle of birth and death. He had heard of a hermit on the wild peak who could help him find the origin of truth. After wandering for years, seeking a master to teach him the way. Along his wayward journey, he met several renowned teachers, but he was disappointed because they had reputations without substance, offering him nothing substantial to find the light at the tunnel's end. In the end, he set off again, though sometimes he was extremely weary, wanting to abandon his quest. Reflecting on it, he felt he did not fail those teachers, especially the last one he met. He had served the teacher with all his heart, hoping the teacher would impart profound instructions. He searched the scriptures, hoping to find the eternal secret that would allow him to traverse the universe without doubt. The venerable teacher looked at him pitifully, casually advising him a few words, but he refused to listen, still convincing the teacher to reveal the mystical secret to overcome life and death. He felt he did not have many days left. He was like a man sitting on a fire, always in a hurry and fearful that the grim reaper might invite him for a stroll in hell. He practiced, but still thought that, although the profound teachings of Buddha were there, without a Zen master's enlightenment to guide, it would all be in vain. He practiced, but always looked forward, his heart burning with urgency, fearing life would pass by, and he saw time like a fleeting shadow through a door. If not hurried, a human life is like a bubble, appearing and disappearing in the flow of the universe. Thinking so, he became more fearful, and with more fear, he felt more desperate, as if trapped with no way out. Before dawn, he had already left, and now he was close to the mountain's summit. He was surprised by the rumors of the peasants below the mountain because the path was not as perilous as he thought. The path curved around the mountain, initially difficult to navigate due to the tilted boulders after many storms, unattended and blocking the way up the mountain, and trees grew over the clusters of rocks, resembling ghostly shadows hidden under the dim light of the remaining twilight. As he managed to overcome this section, despite the bruises and hardships, he overcame it because he was inherently stubborn and had the blood of an adventurer in him. So this path, this mountain slope, meant nothing to him. He just needed to move forward towards a goal he believed was not far off. And he guessed right. After that section, he saw the slope gradually rise, expanding like a dragon curving playfully under the sun. And finally, after conquering a long, gentle slope, he was surprised by the silence and stillness, almost no sound of the wind whistling, not even the chirping of birds, as if no one had ever lived here. There was a simple hermitage built against the mountainside. He saw it. A venerable monk stood at the edge of the cliff, next to him a deep abyss. The monk wore a faded, worn robe, but his eyes shone brightly with wisdom. He sat next to a simple stove made of 3 bricks, supporting a kettle. A few sticks burned beneath the kettle. He stopped, looked at the monk, then knelt down. "I am Phap Hui, seeking the Great Way. Hearing of Master's fame, I've journeyed far, hoping Master would teach me how to escape the cycle of life and death, to transcend this world of suffering." The monk didn't respond. He fanned the flames higher, then asked him, "Is the water boiling yet?" He was taken aback, unsure how to respond. The monk looked at him, repeating, "Young man, do you see the water boiling?" He hurriedly opened the kettle to check. The water was halfway full. He dipped his finger to test the temperature, but the monk tapped his hand with a stick, so he quickly withdrew it. "I asked if the water is boiling." He respectfully replied, "Sir, the water has not boiled yet." The monk grumbled, "If the water hasn't boiled, what can be done? Do you see it warm enough yet?" He looked into the kettle, saw no steam at all. It surely hadn't boiled. The fire was not strong, merely smoldering with smoke. How could the water boil? He thought, "I believe the water hasn't boiled yet." The monk tapped his head, thinking or not thinking. "I didn't ask you to judge by your thoughts, did I?" He was puzzled but replied, "Should I heat it more?" The monk looked at him and nodded. "Right. Stay here and watch the kettle for me. When the water boils, bring it in for me." The monk stood and returned to the hermitage. He stood perplexed, half wanting to follow, half not. Finally, he dropped his backpack to the ground and busied himself heating the water, but the wood was too damp to make the fire strong enough to boil the water. Yet he remained patient. Finally, when he saw the water boiling and steam spreading, he joyfully used 2 cloths to bring the kettle into the hermitage. The monk sat motionless, watching him, his expression unreadable. "Is the water boiling?" Once more, he respectfully answered, "Master, the water is boiling." The monk nodded. "Very well. Now put the tea in for me." Tea was added, and the monk brought out 4 teacups, placing them neatly in front, pouring tea into 2 cups, one before the monk and the other just enough to dampen the cup, and for the 3rd cup, he poured half. But before pouring tea for the 4th cup in front of him, the monk paused, looked at him, then placed the teapot down. He was about to pour himself tea when the monk stopped him. "You must not drink. I haven't decided if you're worthy of the 3rd cup of tea. This is the only cup I have left. Should I hastily offer it to someone who is not devoted?" He was stunned, but replied, "I will prove my worth to you, master." The monk eyed him, sipping his tea leisurely as if he was not there, then began with a warm tone. "Once I had 2 disciples, One I named Phap Kai. I called him the curious one. To him, the way was just a curiosity. He sought enlightenment on a whim. He was only moderately interested. He acted on a whim, doing what he liked and sleeping when he didn't, always depending on his mood. Sometimes he did this, sometimes that, never completing anything. He would work one day, then wander the next, achieving nothing. I had to pour him only a little tea due to his half-hearted attitude. He had to start over again and again, never truly understanding who he was. Eventually, he left. Then the second disciple came to me. I named him Phap Van. He didn't seek the way out of curiosity. Sadly, though he was truly devoted, his sincerity was not enough. He chased after knowledge. He pondered all day about everything under the sun, but never sat in meditation. He established all kinds of systems, and eventually, he too left. I heard he became a philosopher of some sort. The monk paused, taking a leisurely sip of his tea. He asked, "And the third disciple, what about him?" The monk stopped, looking at him for a long while. "Let's see if the third one truly merits being a diligent seeker of the great way. I'm still waiting." The monk paused again, then casually continued, "From now on, you stay here. Every day, your task is to prepare tea for me. Focus only on one thing. Watch the water until it truly boils before adding the tea and bringing it to me." And so, he lived in the hermitage with the old monk. The monk didn't allow him to do any other chores. His only task was to boil water for the monk's tea, 3 times a day, every day. And each time, the monk only filled 1 cup fully, the second cup just a bit, and the third cup half, leaving the 4th cup empty. He never asked the monk why, despite his curiosity. Time would provide the answers. Now, he knew only to diligently prepare tea for the monk every day. Each time he boiled water, the monk would ask, "Is the water boiling yet?" And he would respectfully reply, "No, not yet." Sometimes he would say, "It's about to boil," or "The water is sufficiently boiled," or "The water is boiling vigorously," or "Steam has filled the air, obscuring the water in the kettle from view." Their exchanges were brief, always revolving around the kettle and the boiling water. Day after day, he watched the water with sincerity, fully absorbed as if nothing else in this world mattered more. The kettle became a matter of life and death. He devoted himself entirely to it, bringing the boiled water to the monk for tea after each meal with all his heart. Years passed, 1 year, 3 years, 4 years, then 5 years in the quiet solitude of the mountaintop, making him forget the dusty travels and wandering life he used to lead. The 1,000-mile journey was left far below the mountain. He forgot time itself, if not to say he was oblivious to its passage. His days were filled with tending to the kettle, fully immersed in the task at every moment, watching the steam rise from the kettle and the simple daily routine with the old monk on the mountain. The monk seldom spoke, but he observed the monk meticulously, like a cat stalking its prey. Every step the monk took, his leisurely demeanor, his quiet way of eating, his motionless sitting by the stream until the sun set beyond the deep gorge. He grew familiar with every small gesture of the monk, how the monk washed his clothes by the stream. And by constantly observing the monk, he began to see himself as a shadow of the monk. He started doing more than just watching the water boil. He also washed clothes attentively, reverently performing each task. He treasured every plant and tree, planting trees as if it were a sacred act. He valued each passing moment, observing himself as if he were a stranger watching from a high hilltop, and with time he felt more detached, distant from his current self. He no longer saw himself but only his actions, like the kettle he tended every day, cherishing each moment as if the boiling kettle were the only treasure. Every movement became just a movement, Each step was just a step. Turning around was merely turning. Chopping wood was just chopping. And so time passed. 5 years became 6, then 10 years, until he no longer remembered how long he had been in the hermitage. Time became irrelevant to him. There was nothing left to desire, remember, or long for. He knew only the present moment. One day, carrying a bundle of firewood on his shoulder, he returned to the hermitage, moving leisurely like a woodcutter, step by step, on a path sparkling with white spots shining brightly like diamonds scattered on the ground. And suddenly, he felt himself dissolve, collapsing and then surging forward, an immense ocean roaring within him, waves crashing, filled with echoing tumults, flaring like fierce waves overwhelming him, all rivers pouring into the sea, a wild, irresistible pool of accumulated karma, everything almost chaotic. He was startled, even wanting to look back, but he plunged ahead with the steadfast solidity of a mountain. No time or space could contain him. And then he saw the galaxy floating within him, the cycles of life and death flickering, disappearing. He no longer saw himself blending with anything. He was serene, observing all the shifting shores, swirling lazily, and finally merging into one, dissolving and vanishing. He no longer saw himself but became the boundless ocean, infinite and vast. That night he returned, and the monk personally boiled water, made tea. He respectfully placed 4 teacups in front, poured a full cup for himself, a little over the second cup, and half into the third cup. He paused at the 4th cup in front of him, looked at him, and then, with a smile, poured a full cup of tea for him, saying, "You have proven yourself worthy to be my 3rd disciple. Now I shall name you Dao Ingo, enlightened path." He lifted the teacup and drank deeply. The monk did the same. Suddenly, both burst into laughter, a sound that echoed through the mountains and valleys, shaking the vast heavens, brightening the deep, dark night with a radiant light, as if the whole universe trembled at their realization. In the high heavens, rain suddenly poured down, and both looked out to see thousands of fragrant flowers gently falling to the earth. The music of the heavens faintly echoed somewhere in the void, their laughter continuing endlessly, without ceasing. Through teaching him to boil water, the monk imparted not just a survival skill, but lessons in mindfulness, patience, and the importance of seeing and realizing through the simplest tasks. The way the monk chose to teach him, not through preachings but through everyday life experiences, reveals that enlightenment and profound understanding do not only come from texts or teachings, but from living and experiencing every moment of life through observation, experience, and being fully present in each task, no matter how small. The end of the story, with the monk finally pouring a full cup of tea for him and giving him the name Dao Ngo, signifies that he has attained the necessary understanding and enlightenment to continue his spiritual journey. This enlightenment is not limited to understanding the way, but lies in truly experiencing and being present in every moment of life, realizing the value of life, death, and the cycle of rebirth. The message is clear. Enlightenment and deep understanding of life do not come from condensed study or external search, but from truly living and experiencing each moment of life, by observing, experiencing, and being fully present in every action, no matter how small.